All right.
Just gonna delay, that doesn't make any sense. If you got a reason to do that, or you can do account and afterwards, but you talk about everybody have a little bit more.
What about you?
Come be by you or?
Yeah, I want you to come be by me so I can elbow you. Well, y'all just ran over me this morning. I just come down here.
Ran over my ass, I was gonna say. It's your life.
Does that do anything?
Hey, that's the first step. Showing up is the first step,
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's 11 a.m. I think it's a.m. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8.
Yeah, it is.
And we have almost a quorum. Yes, we are almost a quorum. All right, let's go ahead and call the roll.
Senator Albritton?
Here.
Senator Chambliss? Senator Beasley? Senator Coleman? Senator Coleman Madison? Sorry. Oh. Senator Elliott? Senator Gavan?
Here.
Senator Jones? Senator Kelly? Senator Livingston?
Here.
Senator Orr? Senator Price? Senator Shonut? Senator Stewart? Senator Stutz? Senator Weaver?
We have a quorum. Excellent. Thank you. We have a semi-busy day. We've got 3 bills on the calendar today. We have public hearings on each and every one. Now, it is my intent to get these bills, because we're in the 18th day now. No, tomorrow's our 18th day. It is my intent to get these out of committee if at all possible. So I would appreciate we have whatever robust discussion we need to have. I want to be able to hear everybody up here. I want to give everybody, let's say, the typical time on our public hearings. I think about 3 minutes each we'll give and see how we come with that. And then we'll go from there. Again, I appreciate everybody's here. I appreciate their engagement. Maybe together we can find our way to get something done positively. Clerk, call the first bill.
SB 245, Senator Orr.
Senator Orr, I appreciate you bringing this bill. I've gone through this. I'm very comfortable with this, and we have handouts that's going around to each one now concerning that's been asked to be handed out. So we'll take care of that at this point. And with that, Senator Orr, I'll let you have it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the bill's pretty simple in that it doesn't reduce the eligibility, doesn't reduce any of the terms. It just says we're going to check what is represented by the applicant using the databases that are available to us, and that we'll do cross checks. We'll check against certain databases that we have already in place, and then the frequency also will recheck in case, for example, somebody gets a job or something like this, something changes in the economic with the economic situation of the applicant. Several states have passed similar legislation: Arkansas, Arizona, North Carolina, Tennessee, and others. But right now, we just take the applicant's more or less face value of what they say and don't do a lot of cross-checking after the fact. We do some on death records and things like that to terminate benefits, but not throughout the process.
All right, with that introduction, I think we'll move into our public hearing. And I think Ms. Carol, help me out with your last name.
Gunlock. And
Gunlock,
I
okay.
always apologize to people for such a difficult last name. So I'm Carol Gunlock. I'm a senior policy analyst at Alabama Arise. I want to start by saying how much respect I have for Senator Orr and what one of the smartest people I know at the Alabama legislature.
We all acknowledge that.
We all acknowledge it. I want to start by saying, however, I think this is an unfortunate bill. First of all, one of the things this bill does is it prohibits what's called presumptive eligibility for Medicaid. Now, the legislature unanimously, almost, passed Senator Coleman Madison's bill providing for presumptive eligibility for pregnant women for Medicaid. This bill would negate that bill you all just passed. Same thing with the House bill, with Representative Land's bill. I think that Senator Coleman Madison can tell you why presumptive eligibility for pregnant women is so critical. We also think this can have an effect on rural hospitals, which very often when someone is admitted to the emergency room, gets them signed up for Medicaid very quickly without a lot of cross-checking so that we can get federal dollars into those rural hospitals. It would prohibit that. It would also require, and I hear what Senator Orr says, but it would require monthly cross-checks of innumerable databases by both the SNAP agency and the Medicaid agency. Now, they already do these database checks. They already do a lot of database checks, but monthly means we're going to be churning people on and off and on and off of both SNAP and Medicaid because of whatever shows up on the database. My favorite example is we're going to run 700,000 Alabama SNAP recipients against the federal fleeing felons database run by the FBI, which probably has a couple of thousand people's names on it. But every time we hit a negative, then that person will have, then the agency will have to act on that information, send a letter, cut somebody off. We are worried about the implications, particularly for people in nursing homes who may get kicked off of their nursing home. Yes, sir. And then have to be reapply for the next month. It's simply too much.
Thank you, Ms. Gunlock.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time. Next, we have Ms. Linda Lee. How are you, Ms. Lee?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you so much, Chairman and the members of the committee, for allowing me to speak on this bill today. I am the Executive Director of the Alabama chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics, so representing pediatricians from across the state. I can tell you that 50% of Alabama's children are on Medicaid, and pediatricians, therefore, by default, 50% of their practices are taking care of children who are covered by Medicaid. Because of that, I sit around the table with the Medicaid commissioner, the Medicaid high-level staff, 4 times a year, and also twice a year on the Medical Care Advisory Committee. I've been working with them for 20 years, and I can tell you that Gretel Felton, who's the deputy commissioner over eligibility, and her team do an excellent job in doing what Carol just mentioned, and that is cross-checking, making sure that these children and what few adults there are on Medicaid are truly eligible. And in fact, the federal government requires that of them, and they do an excellent job in what they do. And I can also say that Alabama runs the most bare-bone program possible. In other states, you'll hear a lot about Medicaid in other states. They actually cover more adults and that kind of thing. Here in Alabama, we cover very few able-bodied adults. And I find that they're just being around them, getting to know how they work. They do an excellent job at balancing the state budget and also making sure that these families have coverage. And what she mentioned about churn is very important. If they're bouncing off and on once a month throughout the year, I can tell you that our doctors, those people who see Medicaid patients, will be it will be chaos for them for patients to arrive at their office and, oh, sorry, nope, you're actually not covered by Medicaid. And that creates barriers there. So I just wanted to echo what Ms. Gunlock stated, but also add those few thoughts as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. Appreciate it. That's all that we have signed up on SB 245. So we're back to the committee. Discussions. Motions.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to go ahead and move, and I would say this.
We have a motion by Senator Orr.
A question.
We have a second. So, okay, Senator Elliott, second.
And the senator has a question, but may I, if I'll
Certainly, I
say something?
apologize. Just
No,
getting that
so
procedurally done.
I would say this. I'm certainly open to visiting with the. I would like to get it out in the interest of time, as the chairman said, but certainly open to visiting with the agencies. I've got a list here of all the states and the different databases that they check against. Some do all, some do less than all. The frequency, like Ms. Gunlap brought up, the monthly may be too much. So let's look at a reduction in the frequency, just not to be overly burdensome. But like the chairman said, I would like to move along with this and work with them in the interim.
Thank you. Comments? Senator Stutz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we listen to their testimony, and Senator Orr, you can address this, but as I visualize this process working, you're not going to be off and on and off and on and off and on and off and on. If you're not qualified and you're there fraudulently and you get off, hopefully you're going to stay off. It's not going to be just back and forth and back and forth. At one time you come to the doctor and you're on Medicaid, and you come back to the doctor 2 weeks later, and now you're off or on. I mean, to me, and the last number, you may know this number better than I, but the categories of people that are on Medicaid in Alabama, the category that we all question about is the able-bodied adults without dependents. And there may be someone here that can correct it, but the last number I saw, that makes up 19% of the total Medicaid enrollees in Alabama. So you may know the number better than that, but that's basically the group we're talking about. We're not talking about, in my opinion, of listening to what's said in the bill.
Well, I think
support your bill.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, that the lady made good point. And these are my words: do no harm. But we also need to check, using available databases, are people eligible, and are they truly in the boat that under the federal law says that you're eligible, or do we just take their word for it and never check again? And right now, the bill as filed would certainly bring a lot more checking and a lot more frequency. Certainly willing to discuss the frequency with the agencies and maybe the number of databases upon which we're checking our applicants, and then go from there. But we can do a better job and making sure that the folks that are on SNAP or Medicaid are truly eligible and staying eligible.
Senator Cohen Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, there are several questions that I have about the bill. First of all, you said that there were several states that already do this. How many states specifically?
I've got a list here.
Just give me the number of states that you have that are already using this.
I'm looking and I'm seeing there's some redundancies. For example, Arkansas checks the state wage records, and they also check the death records.
Okay. Just asking for the number of states. Are we talking about 20 states? 15?
20, 30, because it goes in and out. Some do a lot of them, some do several.
So are you saying that DHR, the system that they have, does not work as far as checking?
I'm saying right now they don't. After they once you get in the door, there's no follow-up, as far as I know, as far as checking.
So once you're on the list, you never come off?
Well, that's where we get into the next bill as far as the eligibility, the categorical eligibility, which we can talk about.
Can you address, as we just said, and we just passed, and I believe you voted in support of, the presumptive eligibility for persons, women that are pregnant. This is preventative health care. It catches detections early, as you know, if there's going to be a situation that a child is in trouble or the mother is going to be within that first trimester. The first statement here in the synopsis says this bill would prohibit Alabama Medicaid agency from accepting certain, well, we're not talking about attestations. This has to be from the doctor, and eligibility determinations for Medicaid. So this would block, and it's not saving the state money, because either you're going to prevent it, catch it early and treat it, or you're going to deal with the symptoms, which could be long-term afterwards. Explain that, how this, and this message with the bill that we just passed out of both House and Senate, by the way.
Right. Hadn't passed yet, but I think that's a wrinkle, Senator, that I'd like to be able to address. As I talked to the agent, I had my first visit yesterday, and then I've got one today. But
so are you saying when you voted yes that...
What I'm saying is I'm open to addressing the concerns regarding your bill and the House bill, whichever one passes.
Well, they both have passed out of the House and the Senate. You know, the bills have gone both ways. They passed the House and the Senate. We passed bill that I have out of the Senate, and the House version passed the House, and the Senate version really is out of the House.
All right. What I'm saying is I'm certainly open to making sure we don't get in a wrinkle here with those pieces of legislation.
So how much money, as far as fiscal note, how much money is this going to actually save? And
well, you don't know until you have it. You don't know how many people are ineligible that might be on the rolls, particularly when it comes to Medicaid. That for every dollar we spend, we get the $2 federal. But when we're $35 trillion in federal debt, they could probably use the help too.
Real concerned about people in nursing homes, because while those of you who say that people are not on and off, I know my niece works with, she has 8 nursing homes that she deals with. And I do know that there are people that, for some whatever reason, it could be changing of nursing homes or whatever, tend to roll on and off. And it is a problem just as it is, because sometimes people don't, well, the person that is in charge don't understand the urgency of filling out paperwork, getting that done so that there's not a break in the service. How does this deal with this, and how do you deal with as far as evaluating assets? Right now, Alabama waives the asset limit.
Yeah, that's a problem in my book, because you could have a substantial asset of large, a house or whatever, and still qualify. And why should that be?
Okay, but
you should sell your asset to pay for the nursing home or whatever. If it's not occupied by a spouse, I'm just again, I'm trying to make sure that the people on the rolls are eligible to receive the benefits that they're receiving.
We all understand this. There are people that are house rich and cash poor. It's a home house. And right now, you can buy a shotgun house and it costs you $75,000. I mean, that's basic. That's not exaggerating the point right now. So if a person has a place to stay in, so you say, well, sell the house, but then you cannot afford to even buy another home to get in. How is that helping?
Well, I didn't write the rules as far as eligibility. That's the federal
But
government.
again,
So I
this
guess
would-
what you're saying, I mean, should we look away and say, well,
I'm not
what's
saying
it-
look away. I'm just saying being practical about it. You're going to put a person out of a home and tell them to sell it. Now you got to go find another home. It could be the home house and it could be other family members that are staying in it. Are we really, all the money that we get comes from the public, tax dollars or what have you. We are entrusted as far as being stewards. And you mentioned, let's do no harm. That's the first thing. I don't know how well thought out this has been. And obviously you put some thought into it, but I look at all the people that's going to be affected, from senior citizens, from children
The
who are
governor's
trying to
budget.
get school breakfast, to mothers as far as the SNAP program and everything, to nursing mothers and babies or what have you. It really cuts across everything. I realize that you are trying to save money as far as being efficient and accountable. And I've often said, we need to expand the pie. We're still dealing with the same pie, and we're trying to slice it up. But we don't have any controls of the cost of everything continue to go up. So we've got to find a way to bring in more money into state coffers. Or we're going to find ourselves still kicking the can down the road. But we have done a lot of harm to a lot of people.
Thank you, Senator. I would make one comment along this line is we are talking about trying to do no harm to those that are eligible, that need the help. The difficulty that we have very often is our obligation to our taxpayers who are providing the help, and we need to make sure that we have that balance. Senator Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll try to be brief in my comments. I know we have multiple meetings all day today, but this is such an important issue. Senator did ask a question about the savings, and Senator, you did answer and say we don't know the savings, but right now we do know how much it's going to cost us, though. $2.7 million. That's the estimate at this point for the Medicaid agency, and then another estimated $12.7 million. So we know it's going to cost us money at this point. And I would have liked today if we would have really been able to hear from the eligibility officer to know what that full process is right now. Because what I've noticed since 2010, oftentimes, that we end up, not we, the majority of folks are passing legislation to fix a problem that we don't actually have. So I would have liked to have heard from the eligibility officer to for some of the things that you actually asked about, you know, the investigation, some of those other things before we pass legislation in the event we don't even need it. And I heard Senator Stutz, I did want to say something to you because you mentioned specifically in your comments that the target was, I believe I heard you say able-bodied in adults. I thought I heard you say that, but that's not, this bill does not specify that. Doesn't specify that in the bill, and I'm just worried about unintended consequences. I don't want us to have to come back as a body and undo something that the majority passes because there are some unintended consequences. And with that, I'll no further comment, Ms. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. We got a motion and a second. Let's call the wrong roll.
Senator Albritton? Senator Chambliss? Senator Beasley? Senator Coleman?
No.
Senator Coleman Madison,
No.
Senator Elliott,
Aye.
Senator Gavan, Senator Jones, Senator Kelly, Senator Livingston,
Aye.
Senator Orr,
Aye.
Senator Price,
Aye.
Senator Shonut, Senator Stewart,
No.
Senator Stutz, Senator Weaver.
11-3, Bill's given us a favorable report. Call the next bill.
SB 246, Senator Orr.
Senator Orr?
Boy, nothing like a little bit of controversy, Mr. Chairman, to roll into the month of April. I read something, and I'll read it for the committee, and this is a bill that deals with broad-based categorical eligibility, and that's certainly a mouthful, that made me interested in filing it. So more than 5 million people receive food stamp benefits across the United States with assets or income that put them over the federal limits. How? Many states, including Alabama, use something called broad-based categorical eligibility loophole, which raises the income threshold and eliminates the requirement to check assets of a food stamp applicant to ensure eligibility under federal law. In Alabama's case, food stamp applicants are given a brochure that is labeled a cash welfare benefit and then automatically deemed eligible for food stamps without a limit on assets. In states like Alabama that use the broad-based categorical eligibility loophole, even millionaires can qualify for food stamps. Alabama should follow the lead of states like Tennessee, Mississippi, and Arkansas, which do not use the broad-based categorical eligibility loophole, and simply enforce the federal asset test to limit food stamps to truly needy and encourage able-bodied adults to work. So that's what got me interested in it. This bill would eliminate that loophole like other states have done, and that's it, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. We'll move into our public hearing on this. We've got a few more on this. Ms. Carol Gunlock, you get a second bite at the apple.
I get a second chance. First of all, 43 or 44 states in the United States use broad-based category eligibility. And they do so because it saves dollars in order to not have to capture pennies. That usually speaking, the cost of doing the kind of assets test that Senator Orr talks about costs the state more than we actually save in benefits. And one of the things to be clear about is the administrative cost of the SNAP program is 50% state, 50% federal. The benefit cost is 100% federal. So we're going to be spending state dollars to save federal dollars and not even getting a return on the investment. I should say to Senator Coleman that DHR is in the room. I am sure that if you all ask, they can talk about their verification process and why they do BBCE. In terms of broad-based categorical eligibility, the federal limits on assets have not been increased for over 20 years because nobody uses them. And so therefore, if you have an extra car that's worth more than $6,500, you get turned down for food assistance. Now, I don't think I could buy a car for less than $6,500. If you have air property, if you have an old mobile home out behind your house, if you are an elderly person who has a savings account to pay for your own funeral, you can be turned down for food assistance. This is an outdated federal regulation that almost no state in the country uses, and it makes no sense for Alabama to move into this. The last thing I will say is we all know that the federal government is looking at eligibility for Medicaid. They're looking at eligibility for SNAP. There are going to be federal changes coming down the pike. I don't understand why the state is going to pass legislation that may be preempted by Congress or by the administration, in the next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. April Hartsville, did I get your name correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you for being here. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Voices for Alabama's Children is the only multi-issue child advocacy organization in the state that, and our mission is to speak for the well-being of Alabama's children through research, public awareness, and advocacy. And today I'm here to address or to raise some concerns about HB 246. As we monitor federal legislation affecting children and families, we understand that Congress is likely to introduce a bill on this very issue very soon. And while we appreciate the importance of assessing the cost effectiveness of programs like SNAP, we believe this can be approached more prudently once the federal legislation becomes available to guide the process. Our concern is that the state law enacted before federal law that addresses the same issue would require the Alabama Department of Human Resources to overhaul its system on multiple occasions unnecessarily, and that change would be highly costly to the state. Although it seems the intent of this bill is to save state money, we fear it risks duplication of resources that would be diverted from the program's key goals. We ask that you consider carrying this bill over or delaying its being enacted until after the federal legislation is enacted and addresses this issue. And I just wanted to share with you how important the SNAP program is to the children in Alabama. In 2022, 23.3% of, or more than 1 in 5 the state's children under 18 were food insecure. And nutrition programs like SNAP are critical to these children. This means their households were at, and 3 out of 4 of those food insecure children were eligible for nutrition programs such as SNAP. This means that their household incomes were at or below 185% of poverty. That's $42,606 a year for a family of 3. And then in 2024, more than 355,000 children and youth were under 20 who were eligible for SNAP. SNAP is linked to long-term benefits such as improved economic stability, neighborhood quality, longevity, and reduced incarceration rates. It is a cost-effective investment, saving $56 for every $1 spent on young children. Programs like SNAP help reduce hunger and can make families eligible for other programs. Again, we just ask you to keep these things to consider these things as you're thinking about this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Victor? And your last name is Adams? Odamo. Okay, thank you.
The Italian version of Adams.
Well, welcome.
Thank you. I'm from Vestavia Hills in Senator Jabba Wagner's district. I'm representing Bread for the World, which is a countrywide, multi-denominational Christian organization with a strong presence over the years in Alabama. At Bread for the World, we're Matthew 25 people. We urge political decision makers to do all that they can do to pursue a world without hunger. And Bread for the World is a member of the Hunger Free Alabama Coalition. We come here to speak in opposition to Senate Bill 246 in that it eliminates categorical eligibility for SNAP, which we see as having 3 detrimental effects. It's certainly going to increase Alabama administrative cost. It's going to reduce the amount of federal dollars flowing to the state of Alabama to fight hunger and poverty, and it harms those who need SNAP the most. I just want to touch on the administrative issues that have been spoken to before. Most states, in Alabama and in many states, most of the SNAP recipients come via categorical eligibility from another federal poverty program. So when you eliminate it, you go back into the mode of individual testing, individual records, more work at the DHR for sure, appointments and all that sort of thing. And the categorical process is not a loophole. It is there under federal law and regulations. 40 states use it. It's not a loophole. So we're going to cause Department of Human Resources to go through a whole lot of changes. And also, as mentioned before, you know, we're all sitting here not knowing what's going to happen in Washington with the 2026 budget, except we know that all these bills are going to be reviewed as a part of that. Why go through the process more? I would just suggest to you that this issue needs a lot more study as to its real impact on Alabama after we see what the federal government does. SNAP is very important to Alabama, although I would submit that no individual SNAP recipient gets rich. $1.73 billion comes back to the state of Alabama through SNAP. And a lot of that is critical not only for the recipients, but for our rural grocers and our farmers. Also want to make one last point. Even with categorical eligibility, we have the lowest gross income test that any other state uses, which is 130% of the poverty level. So nobody rich is getting SNAP benefits in Alabama. And we just suggest that this bill will not help the state, will certainly not help recipients, and is premature and really should be put on the study docket for next session. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. That concludes our public hearing. We'll now move to the committee. Senator Orr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've waited on the feds before, and again, we're not reducing benefits or anything. We're just saying we want people to be eligible under federal law and under these programs. So I'd move favorable report, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
Second by, moved by Senator Orr, second by Senator Elliott. And Senator Coleman is, I think, first one to be recognized.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. I have a request. If there's time, I would love to hear from DHR on the two bills, especially on that eligibility piece. Because again, I just want to, I do still have faith in our government workers. So I would just love to hear. I had another request, but it's gone. It is absolutely gone. It's gone. But I would like to hear from DHR and why the person is speaking. If the second one comes up, I'll make that request at that time. The second one has left me.
I think the sponsor has already offered to open up and have discussions with the agencies and with other senators along this line. I would encourage us to do that after the fact.
I'll make that commitment that we'll have a longer meeting with both Medicaid and DHR. And I had my first one yesterday, but it wasn't.
And Ms. Chair, I hear that also, but we also have people that are watching this online. They may want to hear as well. I would love to be able to hear something, especially if we're doing something that is going to impact this agency. I mean, the two bills. I mean, one of them, $14 million, is the fiscal note on the second bill. So that's what the second question was. What kind of staffing would you ultimately need to be able to carry out the impact of these two bills?
And that also comes into the question of the points that were brought by Senator Orr, which is the frequency, which databases and such. All that is a subject of discussion and compromise. So I don't think they could answer that completely until we figure that out.
So you're opposed to just letting me hear from them at all, Mr. Chair? Is that what you're saying?
I would suggest that I don't want to put them on the hot seat to answer questions that they can't respond to completely.
Well, the first one was on the eligibility piece, though. Like, what is the process now for eligibility? Because we have a whole piece of legislation that is going to add this additional layer So I just wanted to know what it is now. It's not in my wheelhouse. It's so much not in my wheelhouse. I actually got an email today from a constituent who is trying to get their mother eligibility, and I'm glad DHR is here because I need to see you all afterwards. They were told to put the house in a housing trust fund. They were told to, pay a penalty. They were told to do all of that stuff, and they continue to be denied because now they're saying that the mother was supposed to have been in a nursing home for 30 days. So I don't know. It's not my wheelhouse. That's why I was asking about how the process currently works.
All right. Senator Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this is, just want to dialogue with the gentleman who's the sponsor of this legislation. Again, I think a lot of him as well. He's the money man here in
And
the
recognize
Senate.
the intellectual
One of the money
brains trust,
second.
yes.
But for me, my concern is the implications that this legislation would have. I represent a rural area, and the implications that this would have on local businesses, the economy, because a lot of these stores are undergirded by SNAP benefits. Furthermore, last year, we had a data breach with SNAP benefits in this state, and no one has said anything about it. I have constituents that have yet to be redressed or face redress from this data breach. I don't have all the details, but I assure you, something tells me that there may have been a third-party vendor involved. DHR is already having a hard time finding workers. Every year they come to us to discuss how the constant turnover, and they are serving people in need. I urge my colleagues to think better about the constituents in which they serve, to think better about Alabamians. These are not shiftless individuals. These are people who are doing the best they can. And I want to add that the gentleman from Decatur, that it's a telltale sign that there has been no proponents in the hearing for both of the bills that you've sponsored today. So I just want to just put that out there.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Coleman Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to echo the sentiments of my colleague to my left here. We're talking about people who really are doing the best that they can. The poverty rate in Alabama currently, well, it's probably a little bit higher because this was in 23, it was 15.6. Looking at the national, it's being 12.7. In Alabama, Alabama rate 44th for the states of residents living in poverty. We have a number of nonprofits that are out there. They do the best they can to fill the gap. And these programs that we are talking about cutting or making it more difficult, it's really going to make it even more difficult for them to fill that gap. No, kids cannot learn. As a former teacher, it's going to impact special ed kids, it's going to impact the elderly, but it's going to impact most of the kids Title IV school, because all of them get under SNAP programs. Right now, we were wondering about trying to put it back even for the summer, because we know that the meal that they get at school is very important during the summer times. They don't get that, and we are trying to put that back to assist families and what have you. Again, we're just trying to give a hand out, a hand up. I really wish, Senator Orr, that there was another option, and I'm sure that we can come up with one if we would all sit down, not necessarily looking at what other states are doing. Governor Ivey always made the statement, we're going to have to find Alabama solutions to Alabama's problems. every state is not the same, and we are an agricultural state. Hunger should not be an issue, but it is. And right now, you hear of seniors that are at home that are living, trying to make a decision on whether you purchase your medicine or whether you purchase grocery. That little bit of food that they get that is assistance really helps them. So I would move that we carry the bill over and do some further study on it, because right now, I do not feel that we have all the information that we need looking at our residents and where they are.
We have a motion and a second, but we also have a motion and a second on the other, but we'll do it this way. We got a motion and a second to carry bill over. All in favor say aye. Aye. All in favor say no. No. Noes have it. Bill's still on the bill. We'll now have the, any objection to doing roll call vote? Let's do one real quick.
Senator Albritton?
Aye.
Senator Chambliss? Senator Beasley?
Mr. Chairman, what are we voting on? I just got here. What are we voting on?
I apologize for that.
That's the full bill?
Yes.
No.
All right. Thank you, Senator Beasley.
Senator Coleman?
No.
Senator Coleman Madison?
No.
Senator Elliott?
Aye.
Senator Gavan? Senator Jones? Senator Kelly? Senator Livingston?
Aye.
Senator Orr? Aye. Senator Price?
Aye.
Senator Shonut? Aye. Senator Stewart?
No.
Senator Stutz?
Aye.
Senator Weaver?
We have a 10-4. Bill's been given a favorable report. Thank you. Call the next bill.
HB 30, Representative Wood.
Representative Wood, I see you here. Thank you for being here. If you would, we have a request for public hearing on this also. We've got 3 people that want to be heard on this. So if you would, briefly tell us about your bill.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for the recognition, and thank you for all your hard work. It's always interesting to come here and look at how our colleagues up here work, and I thank you for everything that you do. House Bill 30.
We appreciate that compliment.
Yes, sir.
I think.
No, it is a compliment, absolutely. House Bill 30 is the post-election audit bill that passed in your committee last year and is also passed in the lower chamber. Alabama Code Section 17-16-2 outlines how our state conducts recounts. The post-election audit bill is not a recount. It's not a bill that absolutely prevents fraud. It's not a bill that prevents anyone from voting. It's a measure to ensure that the DS-200 tabulators that process the paper ballots are working properly. I found a quote in 2018 from then Secretary of State John Merrill that says the machines are old. We're in 2025. The machines that count our votes are over 10 years old. Do any of you have a cell phone that's over 10 years old? Do any of you, you want that push button like my mom, do any of you have a computer? But these are actually processing our votes, and they're over 10 years old. The machines that tabulate our votes are aged. And the machine that actually, the company that makes the machines, they recommend that we do audits. They recommend it in their literature. Post-election audits ensure public confidence in the election process and increase transparency by demonstrating that elections are fair and accurate. On March 25th, the President signed an executive order that included language about the state government's responsibility to safeguard American elections. Currently, 49 states, 49 have some type of post-election audits. Alabama's the only state that has not passed legislation to protect our elections. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll allow any questions or comments. Thank you.
Now, before we move forward, we got a public hearing that we got to go to, but I will let the body know that we have an amendment that's agreed to.
Yes, sir.
The amendment simply takes the time frame and moves it back beyond the challenge and such. It was the way the bill was originally presented, and this is gets the probate judges in line and also content with where we are for the most part.
I find that friendly, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for that.
Thank you. We'll move into the public hearing part, and I think if you can, we're going to do this, since at time frame, we're going to do a 2-minute per. Mr. Robert Garris? Now, I have you listed as a proponent, is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I thank you for your time. I thank you, members of the committee. My name is Robert Garris. As just for some background for you, from 2014 to 2021, I was election manager for Lee County probate judge in Lee County, Alabama. So I have some experience with the technology that we use in administering elections in the state. This particular bill, there's only two main points I want to make today. This particular bill is essentially, the framework for the bill came from legislation that passed virtually unanimously in 2021 that allowed an audit to take place in 2022. It was a very limited audit, took place in 3 counties. The legislation was styled as the Alabama Voter Confidence Act. A very disturbing outcome of that audit that I don't know that's widely known, but in one of the counties where the audit took place, they uncovered transposed votes. So votes were flipped from in the gubernatorial race that was audited manually from one candidate to the other. These were hand-counted ballots at the time, so there was never really a sufficient explanation as to why that occurred. That really disturbed me, because if you're talking about 3 counties and a very small audit sample, I think it was less than 500 ballots to have 1 or 2 votes transposed, for me as an election administrator, is of concern. Not outcome determinative, but certainly in terms of how the machines are designed to function, how they're certified, is way outside the specs for any of the precinct tabulators. So on that basis, this bill simply took the framework of that very limited audit and expanded it to statewide. So we're looking at a very narrow and I think not a burdensome sample of ballots and tabulators to essentially, I would call it a spot check, to see if we can identify similar kinds of occurrences across the state. This is to safeguard the voters, the integrity of the vote, and to make sure that the actual devices that we're entrusting to count the votes are functioning properly.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett.
Thank
Appreciate you. We have, I think, one that's a known opponent, Clay Parrick. Is that correct? All right. Thank you. All right. 2 minutes. Thank you.
All right. I'm Clay Parrick, born and raised in Alabama, taxpayer. I'm here for myself. I first want to commend, our legislator does put forth some good bills. So Senator Orr, I'm going to toot your horn for you. SB 85 and HB 444, I think, are good bills. However, HB 30 is very lacking, so I oppose it as it's currently written. A little background about myself: I worked in the voting system test labs for over 9 years. I've done auditing on major systems, from everything from the Department of Labor's Consolidated Data Center to the XBX radar that sits out in the Pacific Ocean. So I'm quite knowledgeable on how to conduct audits. This bill is not an audit. It is a partial recount. It's statistically insignificant. For example, in Madison County, where I reside, if you applied this bill to it, you would be testing about 0.05% of the votes cast on that ballot. This analysis was presented. It's been peer reviewed, and it just didn't make it. Again, there's no single race that's recounted. This is only a portion of it. Several issues I have. On page 2, they talk about lines 49 and 50, along with other necessary election materials, electronic data. Alabama is resistant to give any public records request on data at all, which other states easily give. And so what data is defined here? It's not. On line 74, on page 3, recommendations for corrective action. Yes, sir. As the previous speaker just said, there were issues found in those 3 counties, but what was done? This bill lacks any further thing. It says that the probate judge can put recommended actions, but again, you're assigning the probate judge to audit an election that they were in charge of supervising. And so there needs to be in the bill what happens if there are discrepancies done. Nothing was done last time, and it was pretty much kept secret and under the lid from the public. I only found out it by talking to somebody within the state. And
Thank
so
you. Thank you. I appreciate your time. Good points. Angela Shepherd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and
Thank you.
committee. I'm going to real quick tell you my story of why I'm here. Most of you have in your packets a QR code that takes you to a video. Back in 2022, I requested my absentee ballot. I was a poll watcher, and I took my absentee ballot and went and made 8 photocopies of it. I then, yes, sir. And I proceeded to take that to the public testing in Lee County. And I have that video shows that it took accepted all 8 copied ballots, which means the DS-200 cannot decipher between a copied ballot or a ballot that was had already been put in there once. And so from there, in May of 22, I kind of got dismissed a lot by the elected officials in the state, but I just was like, there's got to be something to be done. So here we are 3 years later, and still nothing has been done. And so I just stand before you today to fight for election just accuracy and transparency in our elections. The DS-200 machines, like Representative Wood said, are at least 10 years old, and we are literally just looking at receipts that are coming off of the tabulators at the end of the evening and making sure that those results actually match what we had at the for the day. So right now, all we have are ballot accounting certificates. That's the way that we do auditing, I guess, if that's what we do. But this will just ensure more transparency. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question? Because I was confused. May I ask a question?
Certainly go ahead, Senator.
You said something about you made copies of ballots and you took it to different places?
No, ma'am.
Explain that.
So the public testing is 14 days outside of right before the election occurs. And so I took my absentee ballot and just made 8 photocopies. And by the way, also I trimmed it down because it didn't fit in the machine, and it took it and accepted it. So it was only at the public machine testing that day in Lee County, which typically they do it at one location in each of your counties right before the election time. It's called a logic and accuracy test.
Okay, so, but in an actual election, that couldn't happen. I mean, you would not be feeding
Yeah, well,
the
it
same
actually
ballot.
happened. So I did that May 16th of 22. A week later, a Perry County commissioner actually ran copied ballot. I don't know if it was copied or absentee or just a copy or a ballot once and twice through, and he was actually indicted, and then that case was dropped in 23. So yes, it can happen. Now, I wouldn't do it on election day because you're going to get, in big trouble and you're going to go to jail. But so yes, it can happen. It's not. There's no testing mode on there. There is only open and closed modes on those DS-200s. So when you are doing those machines, you're actually seeing how they will respond on election day. Now, okay, go ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've got about 3 minutes before we get kicked out of for another meeting. So, Senator Elliott.
Move adoption of the amendment.
We have a motion and adoption. The amendments in your packet, we went through that briefly. Any questions?
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, but this is such an important issue that we tend to be rushing, and I don't think, I can't speak for all the learned people around me. It's not one that I'm fully convinced that what we're trying to do as an audit is going to solve the problem, unless we are talking about an expenditure of funds to upgrade machines to make sure that whatever you say is happening does happen. We all want fair and honest elections. We want to make sure that the votes are counted. But, and again, it seems like this was based on one person's experience that had two discrepancies, and you decided to take that two sample and spread it, as he said, throughout the state. Naturally, you're going to have human error, but he admitted that, okay, this wouldn't have changed the outcome of the election. Again, are we doing something just stirring the water, or are we trying to get to solutions that's going to solve the problem?
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Let's call the long roll. On the amendment.
Senator Albritton?
Aye.
Senator Chambliss? Senator Beasley? Senator Coleman? No. Senator Coleman-Madison? Senator Elliott? Senator Gavan? Senator Jones? Senator Kelly? Senator Livingston? Senator Orr? Senator Price? Senator Shonut? Senator Stewart? Senator Stutz? Senator Weaver?
Bill's been given a favorable report. Correction, the amendment's been given a favorable report, and we're now on the bill. I move for adoption of the bill.
Second.
We have a second by Senator Elliott.
I'd just like to ask the representative a question.
Certainly, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Representative Wood, who's going to pay for the audit?
It's by the state, us, and the fiscal note is $35,000 for the state, for the state, for the state. The fiscal note.
I've heard from two of my probate judges. One agrees with the bill, and the other one doesn't agree with the bill.
Senator Gavan.
I appreciate what you do for our party. I appreciate your passion on this issue. I have been county party chairman. I've tested the machines beforehand. I understand we've got some problems in the state. I understand that most of the problems are in municipal elections. I think there can be some arguments about because of the tightness of races about maybe even primaries. But I can't point to a single state election. There's one county that maybe you could argue about down in South Alabama, but just statewide legislative races are things that I follow. Anything that's in my area that I can go, ooh, that election looks wrong to me in a general election. I didn't think it was going to go that way. Every one of them's gone the way I think it's going to go. And so I just don't feel like this is just nibbling around the edges. And so I just can't support this bill.
Senator Orr may not be the smartest one here. We don't know. Senator Stewart.
And this is a question for the bill sponsor. What are your thoughts about an opt-in option for different counties? You know, if you might see a higher level of voter irregularities.
I want all 67 counties to conduct post-election audits. We only had the audits previously in 3 of our counties. I think all should have to have the audits.
Okay, one quick one.
Just one thing. I love you to death. Every knows how I feel about her personally.
I appreciate that.
But just to clarify, though, the fiscal note says for each probate judge, $35,000 per. I'm going by what the fiscal note says. That's in front of us. That they would be fully reimbursed.
35,000 times 67. It is not.
Well, it would be because we have 2 of them in Jefferson. But I wanted to say, and the only other thing, I did have the privilege of serving on during Secretary Merrill's tenure. He put together a voter fraud reform task force. And I was actually mad at first about being appointed to it. I was like, I don't know what in the world they're trying to do with it. But it was amazing to have the opportunity to serve on there with probate judges and sheriffs and other legislators, yes. And correct me if I'm wrong, did we look at from like 1980 to the year that we were in, and there were like 6 incidents statewide, and they were municipal. There were municipal issues. And most of that dealt with absentees. And so I just wanted to, just make a point again, and I say this I just said it before, that when we are passing legislation for a problem that we may not have, and again, Debbie, you know how I feel about you. We've been friends now for years, but I just can't support this at this point. I got a long text message today from one of the judges that was a probate judge that actually was on that committee with us. That had some, real concerns about the bill itself. So that's the reason at this point, and my probate judge that does not support it, that I will not be supporting today. But I still love you.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate all of your comments.
Senator Tutts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You and I have talked about it as recently as yesterday, and one of the people that spoke in the public hearing mentioned the same thing that I mentioned to you yesterday about the statistical significance of this type of audit. Are we just falsely reassuring ourselves if we do it? And so my question is, how big of an audit would we have to do to make it very reassuring, to make it statistically significant and relevant to say that we don't have any fraud, we do have trustworthy elections, which I believe that we do, but what do we have to do to prove it?
Well, I don't
How big a
have,
number?
I don't have the answer for that. I will tell you this. My bill was much broader. It cost much more money. And, when I look at all of you and we take care of the taxpayers' dollars, that was one thing we had to look at. But I do think that it's extremely important that we start. If we uncover something, then we'll feel much better about spending more money to do a wider audit than what we have planned in this bill. I think where we err is to do nothing, and that's what we've been doing.
Thank you.
Absolutely nothing.
Thank you. We've got a motion and a second. Let's take a long roll.
Senator Albritton?
Aye.
Senator Chambliss? Senator Beasley?
No.
Senator Coleman?
No.
Senator Coleman Madison?
No.
Senator Elliott?
Aye.
Senator Gavan? Senator Jones? Senator Kelly? Senator Livingston?
Aye.
Senator Orr? Senator Price?
Aye.
Senator Shonut? Senator Stewart?
No.
Senator Stutz?
Aye.
Senator Weaver?
Drum roll. We have 9 to 5. Bill's been given a favorable report. Thank you, everyone, for your involvement and your robust discussion.
Oh, me. I hate to interrupt it. I'm going to carry it over here.
I know, right?
I've heard from the probate judge, or my probate judge. I called him this morning. I said, am I missing anything? Was any of this make sense?